have joining me, as he does every week, my Sky News colleague, former Labor Minister Graham Richardson. Graham Richardson, Richo, thanks for joining us.
Always a pleasure, Andrew.
Are you particularly God-fearing, Richo?
No. I
didn't think so.
Answer.
I didn't think so. So what do you make of this book by Scott Morrison?
Well, if you know Scott, and I've known him for a very long time, long before he went into politics, this bloke's faith is terribly important to him. It's as important to him as his family. I think he's a very deeply religious man. And so the fact that he would be releasing a book covering his journey in faith doesn't really surprise me at all.
How does that go with the top job like PM? I mean, Bob Hawke was an agnostic. Kevin Rudd was a big Christian. Then you had Morrison, who was, probably one of the most Christian PMs we've ever had. Any other names spring to mind who are particularly God-fearing in the top job? And how do you think it affects their take on things?
Well, I think when you had Keating, you had God-fearing him. So that was probably a little different.
Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. But seriously, can it get in the way, or is it a positive? How do you view
it? I don't view it either way, because it just depends on the individual. And in Scott's case, this is very important to him, and it's part of what he is, and you couldn't ever separate him from his faith. The two are completely inseparable.
Will you be rushing out to get that book, Richo?
Rushing is a bit strong, but I might get there.
Well, let me ask you about these voice rallies yesterday. I'll tell you what it sort of reminded me of. I don't know if you're going to like this comparison. 1975, there were huge rallies against the Whitlam dismissal, and then Whitlam got flogged at the election. Can you see that comparison I'm drawing there?
Yes, I can. I fear it may be happening yet again. I mean, I think we knew what was going to happen to Gough. He had done a really good job of motivating his supporters and alienating everybody else. And that was Gough. You couldn't change Gough. And I don't think I've seen anything like it before or since. Now, when you get to a Morrison, it's different entirely, because the people never loved him the way they loved Gough. They might have liked him, but they never loved him.
But no, I'm talking about the voice now. These big crowds, and then that's not necessarily a sign of what's going to happen.
No, as I'm saying, Whitlam got huge crowds and got thumped. And so the fact that with the voice you're getting big crowds doesn't mean very much. Nothing means much until the day itself.
What do you make of some of the inconsistencies in the No case, however, and the controversial statements that have been made? Jacinta Price saying, colonisation was a good thing for Aboriginal people. Then Warren Mundine yesterday is banging on about changing Australia Day in a treaty, even though he's opposed to the voice. Do you think any of this is damaging to the No campaign?
I think the No campaign is pretty damaged anyway. But yeah, I guess none of this helps. But I don't know why all these people want to so desperately get their name in the paper and have their hands on one of the spoons stirring the pot. I think there are enough spoons, enough names. We should forget about all of that, focus on the issue, not on the people.
It does feel a bit to me like the No campaign just needs to stand still and they win.
I reckon you're right. I think Yes is really lagging, and it's been surprising to me that Albo hasn't really dug into it. He's put it up, and so if there's any damage to come from defeat, it goes to him. And so you'd think he'd be out there flogging it to death, but he hardly seems to be giving it any more coverage in his own life than in all the other issues he's dealing with.
All right, we've got Daniel Mookie and Chris Minns' first budget on Tuesday. What can we expect here, and what do you think of Daniel Mookie? We had this a shot of him in the Telegraph during the week, we'll put this up, where he said he was a rap fan, a Tupac Shakur fan. What do you make of this bloke?
Well, look, I've had a bit to do with him, and the first thing to say about him is he is brilliant. His IQ is up there, way up there. Leaves mine for dead, and I'm no slouch. So this guy's very bright, and I'd also remark that he's pretty tough. He's no powder puff, this fella. He can fight.
All right, so what are you expecting out of this budget? Looks like one of those first-year budgets full of cuts, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you have to go hard in the first year because you're not going to do it in the next 2 years. So if he doesn't come out with big cuts and it looking like a tough budget, then I think most people will say he squibbed it, and they'll be right.
Richo, thanks. See you next week.
Hi, Andrew.